figure out what the n is by itself. So we end up getting n equal to 71 shirts. All right, so if they have $120, they could buy 71 shirts if they went to Mighty T. Okay, so if I do the same on the other equation, again, 120 is my cost, so I'm going to plug that in for the C. So I have 120 equals 4.5 n. So on this one, to get n by itself, that's times 4.5, so I do the opposite and divide by 4.5. Okay, so the 4.5s would cancel, leaving me with n equals, well, this time it makes a decimal. It makes 26.6 repeating when I type it in my calculator. So if I only have $120, even though this is technically closer to 27, that would make it more expensive. So we'd have to round down to 26 shirts. All right, so if you have $120, you can get a lot more shirts with Mighty Tees than you can with No Shrink Tees. Okay, so it sounds like this one is cheaper if you're just gonna get a few shirts because there's no startup costs. But then here it's a lot cheaper per shirt. So once you get past that startup cost, it starts to become a lot cheaper per shirt. So we want to figure out, keeping that in mind then, it says for what number of t-shirts is the cost of the two companies equal? So we want to know when the two of these are equal to each other. Okay, now we can decide this a couple different ways. If I want to know when is the cost equal, basically I'm asking myself, when does this equation equal this equation? So when is my cost going to be the same? So what I can do is I can take the Mighty T, the 49 plus n, and set it equal to the No Shrink T, the 4.5n. And I can solve that to figure out when the two are equal. Okay, so if we think back to solving equations, when we have n's on both sides, we usually take away the smaller one. So remember, this is like 1n. So I'm taking away 1n from each side of my equation, okay, which cancels these out then, leaving me with 49 equaling 3.5n. All right, one more step to get n by itself, that's times 3.5. So I want to divide by 3.5. Okay, so dividing by 3.5 cancels out, leaving me with n equals, well, if I type that in my calculator, I would get 14 shirts. So the cost of two companies is the same if they sell 14 shirts. So essentially, if you want to have less than 14 shirts, it'll end up being cheaper for No Shrink Tees, because we already said that has no startup cost, so it'll be cheaper. But then after this point, it's only $1 per shirt after that, once you go past that, that startup cost, so then it starts to become cheaper for Mighty Tees. Okay, well, it does say what is the cost. Well, if we buy 14 shirts, I can plug that into either equation and I should get the same cost. So let's just go to Mighty T here. So the cost would be 49 plus 14. So that would equal a cost of $63. That's how much it would cost for 14 shirts. And if you also plug in the 14 into this equation and you do 4.5 times 14, you'll notice that is also $63. So again, it should be the same cost no matter which company for this number of shirts. Now, just to show you, we solved this using the equations. You could have also created a graph and figured out where the two lines intersect. So let me give you a visual of what this looks like on a graph. So with t-shirts being my independent, that would go down here, my dependent going up the side, and you'll see the No Shrink Tee, they had no startup costs, they just went up at the rate of $4.50 a t-shirt, so it's just gradually going up at $4.50 for every t-shirt. Mighty T has that startup cost of $49, but then they're only going up $1 per t-shirt. So like I said, it starts off being cheaper here. Up until you get to a certain point, then they're going to become really expensive paying $4.50 a t-shirt versus this one only being $1 a t-shirt. So the point at which they intersect each other, if you look at the graph, you see they're intersecting. Okay, and then if I zoom out here so we can see that they are intersecting right here. Oops, paper's folded here. Right here at 14 t-shirts. Okay, so at 14 t-shirts, the price is the same for both of them. It would be $63. All right, so you can find that point of intersection. If you have a graph or you're making a graph, you can find it on there, okay? Or you can set the two equations equal to each other to find that point of intersection. All right, so those are your 2.3 notes.